Today we're going to be doing the exam 1 review session, which includes the intro, chem, cells, tissue, and integumentary system. So there's 5 chapters, and I divide them equally amongst the questions. So if your lecture exam is 50 questions, that means there's going to be about 10 questions on each of these chapters. Okay, so 10 on intro, 10 on chem, 10 on cells, 10 on histology, and 10 on integumentary. Is there a certain thing that I focus on more than others? No. Okay, I actually don't know what each of you individually will have on your exam, because what we do is that we pull questions from the lecture video, the lecture script, and we write tons of questions and we dump it into Canvas. And then what Canvas does is that for each of those topics, it pulls out 1 to 2 questions that a student gets. So I don't, a lot of students ask, what should they focus? What should they study? Really, anything on your lecture video, lecture scripts is fair game. Okay. And that's, I don't even know what the computer will randomize and give you, but I do know that there's going to be 10 questions from each chapter, because there's 5 chapters. And then each kind of major sections, there'll be questions divided amongst those 10 for each of those major sections. So when students ask me, what should they study? And I hate to say this, but really anything in that lecture video, lecture script is fair game. Now, there are reading assignments that are associated with those. Those you should think of as supplemental, okay? So usually what you should focus on for these exams, okay, will be the lecture video, lecture scripts. Now, we do give the reading assignments in addition to those, and that's because some students want to learn more, or they want a little bit deeper explanation into certain things. And that's when you would go into the textbook. Okay, and the textbook has beautiful examples, beautiful pictures, especially if you're a visual learner. But in terms of how to prepare for the exam, it's essentially the lecture video and lecture script. Okay, and go back and let someone into the room. Welcome, Ruth. We're just getting started. All right. Any questions about that so far?
No.
All right. So in terms of content, the lecture exam is going to cover intro, chem, cells, tissue, and integumentary. There are 50 questions. 40 of them are multiple choice and 10 are short answers. So what you're going to do is that when you go into the exam, you're going to see the 40 multiple choice first, and then the last 10 questions will be the short answer. Okay. Now, I could be tricky and just mix all the questions around, but that's not the purpose of this class. I just want to know whether you've learned it or not. So you'll see the first 8 questions within that 40 multiple choice are on the intro chapter. The next 8 questions will be on chemistry. The next 8 questions will be on cells, which means then to be a little bit more helpful in your studying and preparing for the exam, you should study it in chapters, in blocks. Okay, you should study as chapter 1 and then chapter 2, chapter 3, or whatever direction, but just study it as chapters so that you don't confuse and mix things together. Okay, the beauty about anatomy and physiology is that the content does build on each other, but you want to make sure that you're studying each chapter individually so that you don't kind of confuse yourself, at least initially. Okay, questions? All right, so you'll have 50 minutes to take the lecture exam. Now, I know that some of you had written in that intro survey that I conducted that some of you qualify for extended test taking time. And if you do, you have to contact accommodations before I can give it to you. So please, please, please make sure you contact accommodations. And if you don't know who to contact, email me and I'll give you the email. So that you can get that put in, because that's, that's your right to have that. Okay, so make sure you contact accommodations so that I can put that time extension into the system. All right. So that's for the lecture. Then for the lab, same thing for the lab. It's going to be on the intro materials, which includes the terminology like axillary, gluteal, so on. Okay, it will be on the images of the cells and the images of the tissues as well. So it's identification. And just like your quizzes, okay, spelling counts. For your lab exam, there are 30 questions, and lo and behold, there are 3 units you studied for lab: intro, cells, and tissues, which means how many questions will you have on each unit?
So 10 questions?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Okay. They're all identification or defining. They are all write-in, so there's no multiple choice. There's no word bank and spelling counts. Okay. Because you have to type everything in, you do have 45 minutes to take that 30 question lab exam. Okay. You're going to see one question at a time. Okay. You're not going to see all the questions at once. You're going to see one question at a time. You can move back and forth, but I do not recommend that. And the reason why that is because if you move back and forth, you lose track of which one you answered and which ones you didn't answer if you're doing it a lot. 2, the more you have to move back and forth, the more likely you'll have internet issues and you might it might freeze on you. So my strong suggestion is to just do the questions one at a time, spend enough time on each question, and then move on to the next, and then kind of continue onward. Once you've completed the whole exam, then you can go back because on the exam, just like on the quiz, you can mark the questions that you want to go back and review. But I would say initially go through all of them and answer all of them first before you go back and forth, in case you like technical issues happen and you get kicked out. Okay. What happens if that does happen? Okay. If that does happen and you get kicked out, you want to text me. You have my cell phone number on the syllabi. You want to text me right away. Depending on the time, I'll probably be asleep at 4 a.m. if you take it at 4 a.m. But I will respond as soon as possible. Okay. Please don't wait until the next day to email me. Okay. It might be too late at that point. So, let me know right away if you have technical issues. What else? Now, if you've seen the whole exam, and this is why I say do one, answer it, and then move on to the next one. If you've seen the questions on all the questions on the exam, I can't let you, even if you have technical issues, you've already seen the questions, and the computer won't let me like randomize it all over again, because once it randomizes it first and then you take it. So if you've seen the questions and you get kicked out but you didn't answer it, unfortunately you're not going to be able to go back in and take that question again because you've already seen it. Okay. So questions about that? Okay. And this is recorded, so if you need to hear it like a few more times, because I'm going kind of fast, I know that I only have an hour with you, so I'm going kind of fast. You can always watch it again. And I will email you this PowerPoint as well. The logistics for the exam, you have to use Respondus Lockdown, and you've already been using that. What you have not been using, you may or may not be using, is the webcam. Okay. The exams will not be graded. So in other words, you will have a 0 on it unless you complete a thorough environmental scan. The environmental scan is more for your protection than anything else. I only watch the environmental scan if Respondus Lockdown flags you and say that there might be some academic disintegrity, and I have to go through and watch it. So the very first thing I do if Respondus Lockdown flags you is I look at your environmental scan. The environmental scan has you scanning your whole table, your whole work area, And it doesn't have to be a table. You can be doing this on your bed. I know sometimes, you're limited to like what space you can take the exam on. That's cool. Wherever you are, just scan your whole surroundings so that I know that you don't have anything around you that you shouldn't be having. Okay. And there's also a recommendation to have a mirror behind you so that I can see your screen at the same time I can see you, because students, have been trying to be really tricky and put their cell phones in front of their laptops. Respondents has a way of tracking your eye movement so that it can detect that. But it's not as easy. So I'm going to show you an example of what an environmental scan looks like, okay?
So I have a quick question. Do we need to do the lockdown one and the webcam? Because I've been doing the environmental scan,
Yes, ma'am. You
but
do have to do both.
okay, so like is the webcam like an addition? I don't have a webcam, I'm sorry. So is that like a feature like inside my laptop, or like I need to go buy
No,
an
you have it
addition?
because I can see you on the screen. So I know your laptop has a webcam. It's just like this camera on the top.
Oh, like just make sure that's on, you're saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, okay,
Yep, yep.
okay.
So
Got
let
you.
me open this. I think I have. Here we go. Boom, boom. Oops. We're gonna watch it together. Can you hear it okay?
I can't hear it at all, but I did watch it
Okay,
already.
wonderful. So essentially it's saying you can have a scrap sheet on while you're taking the exam. So just show the front and back of it. So you want to show your scrap paper at the beginning and at the end. So she's saying you want to show your desk, your lap, because sometimes students have their cell phones on their lap. So one and on the other, just to make sure that there's nothing around you, nothing in front of you. And know she has a mirror behind her so I can see.
Are we gonna need scratch paper?
It's up to you. If you don't need it, you don't need it. But if you want to have some, you certainly can.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's essentially what an environmental scan would look like. Questions? No questions? We're good? Okay.
No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. So you want to make sure you have, that's what you need to be able to have your exams graded. Okay. Troubleshooting. Try the practice quiz. The practice quiz you can take multiple times, as many times as you want, whenever you want. It's just to make sure that the computer that you're using is compatible with Respondus Lockdown and Webcam. So you can use the practice quiz for that. Okay. Technical difficulties. If you do run into problems, don't wait until the last minute to take the exam, first of all. Stay calm and just text me. Okay. And we'll try to resolve it as soon as possible. The recommendations I have is the 5-day study plan, and that's why I purposely have this study session at the very beginning of the week so that you have the 5-day that you can do, okay? There's actually a document called the 5-day study plan. It's very, very helpful. It's probably what saved me when I was going through this class myself, because it's just too much materials. So if you have the 5-day plan, it helps to keep you accountable as to what you're studying for what day, how many hours, how are you studying. And then doing well in this class involves 3 things. One, studying. So you have to make sure that you're giving your brain a chance to put the information in, okay? And I'm going to give you an example. If you read a whole book, how likely are you able to repeat that whole book word for word? Likely or not likely?
For me, maybe not so likely, honestly.
I would agree with you. That's the same for me. I don't have photographic memory. And that's why when you're studying, there's a thing called study smart versus study hard. Study hard is continuously reading something over and over and over again in the hopes that you're going to remember. And honestly, most people will not remember everything that they've read. So the strategy to studying smart instead of studying hard is to learn actively. And that's by rewriting your notes. You can recall, studies have shown, like tons of studies, this has been studied extensively, that when you are actively studying, you recall 3 times as much as if you were just to read something. What does it mean to actively study something? It could be rewriting your notes. It could be drawing things out and labeling. It could be making the cognitive maps, which is why, by the way, I make you do the worksheets. That's what the worksheets are. It's an active way of learning the content instead of just reading or listening to the video. Okay? So that's number 1, studying. Number 2 is practicing your recall. I tutored my friends in this class, but they always did better than me. I understood the material so well that I tutored it, but when it was time to take the exam, I couldn't recall the information. So you have to practice the recall. And how do you do that? That's why one of your assignments is to practice writing sample questions. So you would take your notes out and you would make practice questions out of your notes. Okay, and you can use the quizzes that you've been taking as a model of what the questions should look like, and you just quiz yourself. Don't quiz yourself right after you wrote it because you're going to remember, right? But the day after or the day, 2 days after, you want to go through like a flashcard or Quizlet and just quiz yourself. Or better yet, have someone else quiz you. Okay. Now, if you're using flashcards, you should have it shouldn't be your notes. Okay. It should just be a question and answer front and back. And if you answer it wrong, put it into one pile. If you answer it right, put it into another pile. And then when you review, don't review the ones you already got right. Review the ones you got wrong. Okay. So there's lots of study strategies. I'm sure all of you have some that you are unique to you. Okay. And that's why in the intro, I had you kind of share, how you plan to do, what are you planning to do for this class so that your peers can glean from your experience as well. Okay, so that's the second thing, recalling. The third thing is test taking. There's a video that I've emailed to everyone in terms of like, how do you take an exam, especially a science exam? Well, you're going to want to use process of elimination. You don't want to read the question, come up with your answer before you look at the answer option. Okay. You want to look for key terms. And sometimes there are certain things that you do that helps you kind of identify things faster. Okay. So that's test taking strategies. So those are the 3 things you're going to build as a student in this class, in addition to all the content that you're going to learn. Okay. All right. I would recommend studying either the oldest materials first because it's been so long and you may not be able to recall it, or study the hardest materials first. Okay. Because usually students put off studying those. They tend to study the things that they find easy or most recent because, it's not hard. It's easier. All right. And if learning was all about being easy, it's not learning. Okay. Learning is supposed to be a struggle. I still struggle when I'm learning new things. I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense. But I have to take a step back and say, okay, how do I make that make sense to me? And that's where the learning occurs. So if this comes easy to you, that means you've had some background in this already. If this is hard for you, that's normal. That's the process of learning. Okay? All right. Study complete chapters. Don't skip around. Okay? And then lastly, make sure, I can't emphasize this enough, make sure you go through all the materials posted on the announcements page. The announcements page is something I, as your instructor, made for you, my students. It's not something that all the classes have. It's something I made specifically for you. Okay, so if I find like students are struggling on this, I'll put a link to it. Okay, so make sure you go through and watch all of them. There is one in particular that I really want you to do, because I've noticed that students are struggling on the lab quizzes, especially the histology and tissue one. It will actually help you walk through what those are. Okay, I'm just gonna go back to the chat really quick and let somebody in. Welcome, Gina. Okay. So go through the materials in the announcements page. Okay, there's going to be videos, there are going to be worksheets. Oh, and one thing about the worksheets, not all of the worksheets are your assignments. In other words, you don't have to submit them on Canvas, but you really want to make sure you do all of the worksheets. Okay, because that's a way to actively study. Okay, now when you do the worksheets, this is how I recommend you doing it. Okay, when you do the worksheets, study first, then do the worksheet without any notes. Why? It's going to let you know, of all the things you studied, what can you remember? Okay. Use a different color of pen or pencil, and then same worksheet, pull out your notes and go, oh, I forgot that. Write that in. Oh, I got that one wrong. Fix it. Because that's the way you train your brain to be able to go from what I know to understand what I don't know. All right. So for each of the worksheets, you only need to print out one or work on one, but you want to do it twice. The first time without any notes, just based on what you've been able to understand. The second time you go over it, pull your notes out. All right. And that's going to let you see what you really need to focus on a little bit more. All right. Okay. So that's it for the strategies. So now we're going to go right into it. So there were requests for histology and integumentary. So I'm just going to briefly go over the first 3 chapters, which is intro, cells, and chemistry. And then I'm going to spend half an hour at the end, which is like in 4 minutes, to go over the requested material. So for the intro, make sure you know scientific method, be able to give me all the terms and the definition, and definitely be able to define what's anatomy and what's physiology. Okay, so what's anatomy? How would you define that? What's anatomy? You all still there?
So it's the study of the external and internal physical structures.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry, I was a little worried. I'm like, oh no, because sometimes I get cut off. Okay, so anatomy is the study of structure. What's physiology?
The study of function.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so if you were studying how the heart pumps the blood, what are you studying?
You in the Zoom? How the heart affects the
Physiology.
physiology.
Yes.
That would be the function, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be physiology. If you were studying the chambers of the heart or the valves of the heart, what are you studying?
Anatomy.
Exactly. So on the test, I can ask you to regurgitate the definition. For example, anatomy is the study of structure, or I can have you apply it and say, if you're studying the heart blood, the movement of blood flow, which one are you using? Okay, so those are the ways in which I can ask the question. It could be a pure regurgitation or it could be an application. All right, same thing for levels of hierarchy. In other words, what's the smallest to the largest? Okay, so right now, as it's listed, is it listed from the largest to the smallest or smallest to the largest?
Smallest to largest.
Yes, ma'am. Now, on the test, I can ask you either way. So that means that you have to read the test question carefully. Okay. Now, I notice a lot of you got this question wrong on the lab that you probably knew but didn't read the question carefully. So one of the questions in lab was asking, what general type of tissue was this? And then you went and gave me the specific name of the tissue when all I wanted was what general type. In other words, was it epithelial? Was it muscle? Was it connective? Was it nervous? But instead you put down skeletal, which unfortunately is wrong, right? So my point here is you have to make sure you read the questions carefully. I could be on the test asking you to list these things from smallest to largest or from largest to smallest. Okay? So read the question carefully. I could ask you, okay, which of the following is the smallest living? What would you say?
Cell.
Cell.
Yes, ma'am. Versus if I ask, what's the smallest in here, then you would say atoms. Okay? All right. One big concept that I guarantee you will have a test question on is homeostasis. I guarantee you will have this. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because I don't actually know what you will have. But I'm pretty sure you will have one on homeostasis. I'm like 99% sure. Homeostasis is so important. We cover this in every single chapter we're going to go through. Okay. So homeostasis is the ability to maintain stable internal environments. And then there's lots of terms that circulate around this concept, this physiology concept of homeostasis. There's negative feedback, there's positive feedback, there's dynamic equilibrium, there's a set point. So all of these terms, if they don't make sense to you, you got to make sure you cover them. Okay? Make sure you know the examples. What's an example of negative feedback versus what's an example of positive feedback? Okay? And there were also a lot of terms that you have to memorize in this chapter. Okay? Chemistry. Lots of terms as well. What's an atom? What's an ion? What's a molecule? Solute, solvent, tons of terms. Be able to know what is a molecule, how molecules prefer to be either stable or neutral. Which one do they prefer to be, by the way?
Stable.
Yes, they prefer to be stable over neutral. Okay. What does neutral mean?
They're not an ion.
Yeah. So neutral means the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons.
Mhm.
So there is no charge. Okay. Stable means what?
The outer ring has the either the 8 outer electrons
Yes.
or
We
is
call
full.
perfect. We call those valence electrons.
Right, valence.
Yep. So it has the maximum valence electrons. And if it's the first orbital, how many does it have?
Two.
Two.
Yeah. Oh, you made me so happy. What's the second one?
8.
8.
Yes. And the third one?
8.
8.
8. And that's why we have the 2-8-8 rule.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can it be stable with one orbital?
If it's full. Oh.
Yes, you're right.
Oh, if it's full. Okay.
Yes, be confident. Your first answer, your first response usually is the right one.
I
Be
know I
confident.
always screw myself up with that.
I do too. I always second guess. Yeah. All right. Make sure you know the chemical bonds, the definition, ionic, covalent, and hydrogen. Know which one's weak, which one's strong. Okay. Know the pH scale. Okay. It's a measurement of acidity because it's looking at the number of hydrogen ions. And that's why it's called P of H. P means it's the logarithm of H, which is hydrogen. Now, just a little background on math. When you take the log of anything, the greater the amount, the smaller the number. And that's why on a pH scale of 0 to 14, the more acidic it is, which direction will it go? To the higher number or to the lower number?
Lower.
Yeah. So the more hydrogen ions it has, it's actually the lower the pH value because it's taking the log of something. And the log of something means the greater the value, the smaller the number. That's why it's like that. Because you're like, wait a minute, why is the number going down if there's more hydrogen ions? Well, that's why. Because it's the log, the P of hydrogen. Okay? All right. Then the organic compounds you all did, and I made a lot of comments, so make sure you go into your assignment, read through my comments. Okay? A lot of you redid your assignment, so that's awesome. Okay? And that's an example of what a cognitive map looks like. A cognitive map helps you to organize the content into a way that you can easily recall. And that's why the worksheets are so full of cognitive maps. Okay? All right. Here's an example of one. The carbohydrates. You can fill this out for the rest of them. Lipids, proteins, and nucleic acid. I just filled out the carbohydrates for you. Okay? Cells, a lot of you did really well in cells, so I'm just going to kind of quickly go through it. Make sure you know the structure and function, the plasma membrane. You know, what's the main component of the plasma membrane? What would you say?
Phospholipids.
Yes. Phospholipids. These little guys. They're made of two parts. What's this part called?
Phosphate head.
Yep. And what's this? These two things at the bottom?
Fatty acid.
Fatty acid.
No.
Yes,
Okay.
both of you are correct. The phosphate heads are considered to be what? Hydrophilic. Yes.
Hydrophilic.
And the tails are?
Phobic. Hydrophobic.
Yes. So there's water out here and there's water inside of the cell. And that's why the tails face each other because they don't like water. And that's why it's positioned the way they are. The heads are always facing the water and the tails are facing each other. Okay?
Yes.
All right. Make sure you know the mechanisms of transport, passive, the different forms of passive, diffusion, facilitate diffusion, osmosis, and filtration. Oh, you know what? Students always get bogged down by the difference between these two. What's the difference between diffusion and facilitate diffusion?
Facilitated diffusion needs to go through a protein.
Yes.
But it just passes through. It doesn't.
Oh yeah, and then the diffusion is the something about the force of water or something like that.
Nope. You're thinking about osmosis.
Oh.
You're thinking about filtration. Anything with water is related to either filtration or osmosis.
Oh.
So that's a good point, though. What's similar about diffusion and facilitate diffusion, and actually all of them are always going to go from high.
Oh, the highest concentration to the lowest.
Yes, ma'am.
What was that called again? Down
Concentration
the
gradient.
gradient. That's right. Gradient.
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't remember that. Yeah. Okay.
And because it's going from high to low, it does not require what?
ATP.
That's right.
Yeah.
So imagine if we were in class together physically and I had like a bottle of perfume on me. Eventually, those odor, the perfume molecules will eventually diffuse over to you. Or here's another one. If you've ever made Kool-Aid, and I know we don't do that anymore because it's not healthy, but I grew up on
I
Kool-Aid.
still make Kool-Aid with a lot of sugar. It's terrible.
That's right, man. So when you make Kool-Aid, you pour the Kool-Aid in the water, right? And you don't even have to stir. What happens to the colored sugar?
it changes in the water after
Yeah,
it
it
sits for a while.
disperses. It
Hmm.
disperses throughout the water. That is diffusion. It's
Oh,
going from where
that's
it's high to where it's low. And then, of course, you want to stir it so that it diffuses evenly. But
right.
that's what it is. Where active, you're going against the concentration gradient. You're going from low to high. And because of that, it's going to always need ATP. Okay? The organelles, you all did a magnificent job on. And I try not to provide too much comments on the videos because the videos are meant for you and the TA to kind of provide each other feedback. Okay, so that's why I kind of stay clear of that. But I did notice watching them that some of you didn't quite include the level of details that I'm looking for. So make sure you know the levels of details. For example, what's the membrane that you would find in endoplasmic reticulum versus the Golgi versus the mitochondria? What membrane makes up the ER, Golgi, and mitochondria?
Well, you mean like the cristae or
Yes.
how do you pronounce it? In the
Yes.
mitochondria and they all start with C, which makes it tricky.
That's exactly why I want all of you to cover it.
Uh-huh.
So there's the cisternae and then the
Cisternae.
cristae. Yep.
Okay,
So
that's how you pronounce it, cristae.
yeah, that's how you cristae.
Okay,
You know what?
I wasn't sure.
It's like respiratory and respiratory. So depending on
Mhm.
where your teacher is from, it's going to sound a little different. But essentially, the mitochondria consists of the cristae, where the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi consists of the cisternaes.
Cisternae.
Yep. Another difference is you should be able to tell me the differences between the ERs. They have their own functions. Some of you kind of cheated a little bit and didn't really cover the function of the rough ER. What's the function of the rough ER?
To produce ribosomes and
I love that you provided that answer. It is not correct. Okay.
What
Changes to proteins.
But that is the most common incorrect answer. And so I'm very thankful that you
So
provided
can
it.
you tell me the question again? You said what
Sure.
was the
What is the function of the rough
oh
ER?
the function?
Yes, ma'am. And I love that you did that, though. This is the best time to get answers wrong. Okay. You're going to remember it for sure when you take this on the exam that that's not the answer, right? So this is the best time to provide the wrong answer. Okay. So the correct
Yes.
answer for that, because a lot of that, like 80% of the time when students take the quizzes, that's what they say. And the reason why for that is because the ribosomes are connected to the rough ER. And so because of that, they think that the rough ER is where produces proteins, but it's not. That's the job of the ribosomes. The rough endoplasmic reticulum functions as a network of channels. It functions as a network of channels. It helps to move things that are being produced from the nucleus to throughout the cell and to the cell plasma membrane. Okay, so the rough endoplasmic reticulum functions as a network of channels, or a channel, yeah,
Oh,
network
okay.
of channels, just kind of to transport things. Where the smooth ER does not have ribosomes. It does have three distinct functions. What are the three functions of the smooth ER?
Does it have something to do with lipids or
Yes.
these?
Yes,
I'm
it
like,
is.
I can't remember what
You
those.
did. You gave me
Oh,
the answer. It's lipid
oh,
synthesis.
oh, okay, okay.
Yep, so that's one of the answers, lipid synthesis. Now your classmates have to help you with the other two. I'll write it out while you're thinking.
So detoxification.
Yes, love it. which is why, by the way, your liver has tons of smooth ER. Detoxifies alcohol and drugs. And one more.
The calcium storage?
Yes. So later on, when we talk about muscles, you're going to learn that in the cells of muscles, they also have lots of SR, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, because of the calcium storage. And calcium is highly needed in muscle contraction. Okay, so these are the 3 functions of smooth ER. Lovely. All right. So here is an example of what I do for my in-person classes. I would draw out the cell, draw out the nucleus, draw out the organelles, and I would label them and then write the functions next to them, which is what you kind of did for your video. But this is a way of actively studying. So instead of just reading about it, you can actively draw it out and label and then write the function next to it. Okay? Much more easy to remember if you do it this way than if you were just to read it. Okay? All right. Tissues. So there's a request for this one. So for tissues, make sure you know structures and functions. There are 4 types of tissues: epithelium, connective, muscular, and nervous. We have 3 chapters on nervous, so that's why we barely go over we have 3 chapters on muscles, so that's why we barely cover it in this chapter. And you have 2 chapters on nervous, so we barely covered it. So in tissues, although we do cover all 4, we really focus on epithelium and connective. Do cognitive maps. This is a lot of memorization. And that's why a lot of times students struggle in this one, because there's just so many different types of connective and there's so many different types of epithelium. So cognitive maps are the way for sure to go for this content. I'm going to show you this. This is also an in-class drawing that I made for my class. You can see that of the tissue types, there's epithelial here. There's connective here, a little bit on nervous here, and a little bit on muscle here. Okay, but let's look at epithelium. So essentially for epithelium, you are responsible for knowing the characteristics and the functions. They are not the same. That's why on the test, you have to read carefully if I'm asking for the characteristics or am I asking for the functions. Can someone list the characteristics for me?
So characteristics would be more of their appearance, correct? Of how they. I don't know. That one is hard for me, so I need to just listen in.
That's
The
okay.
epithelial tissues is a struggle.
That's why you have lots of classmates.
So
Would a correct answer be that it's avascular?
Beautiful. You are absolutely correct. That is a characteristic. So a characteristic, I heard that, yes. And rightly so. A means without, vascular meaning blood vessels. So that is a characteristic, not a function of epithelium. One characteristic of epithelial tissue is that it does not have blood vessels. Okay, so that's why it's avascular. Another characteristic would be that the cells are very packed, jam-packed with each other. There's not a lot of things in between. Okay, so those are examples of characteristics. Okay, where functions would be, what can epithelial tissue do? What are some examples of functions of epithelium?
Protection.
Yes. What else?
secretion and excretion,
That's right. You got them. Exactly.
absorption, filtration.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Oh, I have that one in sensation. Okay, I wrote all that down.
Yes.
Okay.
But do you notice the difference, though, between the terms that fit under functions versus the term that fits under characteristics?
I do now. Yes. Thank
Beautiful.
you. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I do now.
Perfect. Then how do we classify them? We classify them by the number of layers and its shape. Now, I did notice a few of you on the lab quiz only gave me one term when you were identifying it, which is not correct. It has to have both the two terms. You have to provide what is the number of layers. If it's one layer, it's always simple. If it has more than one, it's stratified. Then you also have to provide the shape. Is it flat and thin, squamous? Is it cube-like, cuboidal, or is it tall and thin like a column, so columnar? And of course, there are the exceptions. I made a really detailed video as to how to identify what from what. Okay, so there is a video in the announcements where I go through like strategies, tips to be able to identify the different types of epithelium apart. So I'm going to point that to you because I'm kind of running out of time tonight. Okay. For connective, same thing. They have their characteristics and they have their functions. Be able to distinguish which one I'm asking for. All connective tissue have these three things in common, and that's what allows you to distinguish them apart. What kind of cells do they have? What ground substance do they have? And what fibers do they have? Okay. So based on that, if it has lots of cells, if it has lots of fibers, they tend to fall under fibrous. If it has not a lot of fibers and a lot of more ground substance and cells, it falls under loose. And then the rest is the other. Okay. So let's just pick one to go through. Bone. What is the cell type that you would find in bone?
Osteocytes.
Yes. What's the ground substance in bone?
Ooh, it's got a lot of minerals and
Yep. What minerals?
calcium. And what else? Let's see. Oh, collagen, right? Is there?
That's
is
the
collagen?
fibers.
Oh,
You're right.
okay.
You're right, though. That is the fibers.
Okay.
Okay. You almost perfectly answered that. And that's what you want to be able to do for all of them. What is the cell? What is the ground substance? What is the fibers? So in bone, the cell is osteocyte. Ground substance is calcium phosphate. Fibers would be collagen. Makes sense because collagen is strong, right? So that's why you would find it in bone. Okay, so that's what you would do for all of them. And then nervous and muscular.
Said, what is the cell, what is the ground, and what is the fiber?
Yes, ma'am. So right here,
Okay.
the cell type right here. Oh, you know what? Let me use a different color. Maybe easier to see. The cell type right here, the ground substance right here, and the type of fibers. So you're going to want to know what those are for each of the types of connective, because that's what makes them what they're called.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So same thing. All of this is in this really detailed video. So watch that, okay? In the announcements page. All right. I need to zoom out. There we go. Lastly, we have the integumentary system. So for integumentary system, make sure you know structure and function, the skin, the nails, and the hair. So don't get stuck. I mean, a lot of the information is on the skin, but you are also responsible for the nails and the hair structure as well, because you'll have questions on them. The skin, make sure you can tell me the layers. There are some mnemonics that my students have come up with, but I am sorry, I can't remember what they are. But they're really cute. Something like cute bears, something. I'll see if I can pull it up again. But there's mnemonics that you can come up to kind of help you remember the layers. Okay. So make sure you know the layers. What's cutaneous versus what's subcutaneous? What's the epidermis, dermis versus the hypodermis? And you had a worksheet that you had to do this on, right? So that worksheet, is a really good one to kind of redo as you're studying in the way that I recommend it to you. Do it once without any notes and again with notes, okay? And then make sure you go through the dermis and then the hair membranes, okay? So this is something that I did for my in-person class. So what we did is that we kind of went through the function of skin. Protection, synthesizes vitamin D, sensation, thermoregulation, communication. And then here's kind of what you want to take a look at. Now on the exam, I can ask you the order from superficial to deep, or I can ask you the order from deep to superficial. Okay, so read the question carefully before you go to answer it. Because sometimes the correct answer is to go from corneum to bacilli, and other times it's the reverse. Okay, but here are the characteristics for each layer. You can see, so this portion right here, let me highlight it, or not. Let's highlight in pink. I don't know why it's not highlighting. Oh, it is not choosing the highlight. I'll just go like this. So that's the epidermis. Here's the dermis, and here's the hypodermis. Oh, I kind of did that already over here. And here's a good way of learning it is to kind of draw it out, label it, and then kind of write little bits of information about them on the side. So you can see that the epidermis overall, it's the outermost, it's avascular, it's made up of stratified squamous epithelium, it's keratinized, and it's densely packed. Where the dermis is vascular, it has connective tissue, specifically areolar. It has a reticular layer, specifically made up of dense irregular, and it holds the accessory organs. What are the accessory organs? Here's one. Here's another one. Here's another one.
Oh, the glands. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. That's where you would find them. You would find the glands in the dermis. You have the merocrine gland, the apocrine gland, and the hair follicle. Okay? Ooh, I forgot one. It's the sebaceous gland. Okay? So those are the 4 accessory organs in the dermis that you are responsible for knowing.
So skin itself is an organ, but then within it, there's all of these other tiny organs, and they're
Yes,
accessory organs.
that's right.
Okay.
Yep, that's right. Okay, questions? So did I cover, is there anything that you were asking that I did not cover? Because I have about 3 minutes left.
Shoot. I wrote a question down and now I can't find it. I guess it wasn't too pressing, but
You can always email me if you find it later. Okay. What else? Yes, so I'll
as
provide this
far-
PowerPoint. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. As far as using the book for studying, we're only asked to read certain pages of our text. It's hard not to go beyond that, but really we only need to look at the pages that are assigned to us.
That's right. And actually, they should be your supplemental. So
Okay.
100%, sorry, 99% of what is on your exam comes from the lecture video.
Oh, okay. That's
Yep.
helpful.
The only 1% that does not come from your lecture video is a reading assignment that you have to do. And it says it. This is not covered in your lecture. You are responsible for this. And it's the joint movements, which is on the next exam.
Okay.
Yep. But 99% of the time, let me be specific. For this exam, all the questions will come directly from your lecture video, lecture script.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, so how do you prepare for lab? I noticed that a lot of you were struggling with lab. Really, the PDF, that is your main source. The PDF, listen to the video, write down the correct answer in your PDF. Or instead of writing the correct answer on your PDF, you can number it. Like number 1, number 2, and so on, and make it into a quiz with an answer key. Okay, so your PDF has now become a quiz, and then you have another sheet with the answers on it. Number 1 is this, number 2 is this, and so on. And that way you can always go back to the PDF and say, what is this? Number 1, I think it's this. Then check your answer with your answer key. Okay, so you make your PDF into a quiz. All right, what to study for a lecture, the PowerPoints and the videos and the scripts. Okay, studying, write your notes. And that's why, in addition to the script, I always add outlines. The first chapter, the intro outline, is super detailed. It's all done for you because it's giving you an example of what your outline should look like. Then as you move to the one for chemistry, the one for cells, it gets a little bit more sparse each time you go because it's kind of training you how to write notes using the outline, because that's what's going to help you recall the best. Okay, it's like this. If I gave you these numbers, 612-325-0284. It's really hard to remember. But if I give you 612/325/0284, I've organized those numbers into a phone number. So you associate as a phone number. It's a lot easier for you to remember. Okay, that's the difference between a paragraph versus an outline. It's all about helping you to organize the information as you study it into your brain so that you can easily disentangle it from each other and pull it out when you need to recall. Okay? So rewrite your notes, use cognitive maps, active, don't read. If all you're doing is reading, you're not going to remember it. Okay? I know there's certain circumstances where you don't have time and all you can do is read. That's cool. If that's the case, one suggestion would be to listen to the video. Okay, listen to the video when you're driving, or if you have a spare minute here and there, do Quizlet. One year when I was going through my grad school, I didn't have time, but I was on the road a lot, so all I did was listen to the lectures over and over again. I would pause it, I would like quiz myself and so on. So you do what you need to do to be successful. Okay, but ideally rewrite your notes, cognitive maps, active learning. Okay.